What if paradise was not a dream, but a place? A land where cliffs rise like ancient giants, where puffins dance across the skies, and where the ocean's roar is the song of eternity. Hidden deep in the North Atlantic lies a world untouched by time, wild, raw, and breathtaking beyond imagination. This is not just another destination. It is the last paradise on Earth. Welcome to the Faroe Islands. Have you ever imagined a place so wild, so untouched, that it feels like the edge of the world itself? A place where mountains rise straight from the sea, where mist curls around cliffs, and where silence is broken only by the cry of seabirds and the crash of waves. Welcome to the Faroe Islands, an archipelago so remote, so raw, that many call it the last paradise on Earth. The first glimpse is unforgettable. As your plane descends toward Vágar Airport, the ocean stretches endlessly in every direction, and suddenly, towering green cliffs emerge from the mist like giants guarding a hidden kingdom. The islands don't appear gradually, they rise abruptly, dramatically, as if nature herself carved them in defiance of time. From the very first moment, you know you have arrived somewhere unlike anywhere else. The Faroe Islands are made up of 18 volcanic islands, scattered like emerald jewels in the North Atlantic, halfway between Iceland and Norway. Their landscapes are both breathtaking and humbling. Steep cliffs plunging into the sea, valleys blanketed in lush grass, waterfalls tumbling down mountainsides, and villages with turf-roofed houses that seem to grow naturally from the earth. It is a land shaped by wind, water, and resilience, a place where nature rules, and humanity has learned to live in harmony with its power. As you set foot on the islands, the air feels different, crisp, salty, pure. There is a sense of timelessness here, as if the modern world has not yet disturbed this fragile balance. You see sheep grazing freely on steep hillsides, fishing boats bobbing in sheltered harbors, and roads that twist dramatically around mountains and fjords. Life here is not about rushing forward, it is about enduring, adapting, and respecting the forces that have shaped this land for thousands of years. What strikes you most is the silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of presence, a stillness that allows every sound to be amplified. The distant call of puffins circling the cliffs, the low rumble of waves crashing far below, the whisper of the wind weaving through the valleys. It's as if the islands are speaking to you, reminding you that this is not a land to conquer, but a land to experience. Everywhere you look, the scenery feels cinematic, larger than life. The cliffs are not just tall, they are colossal walls rising straight out of the sea. The skies are not just gray, they are painted with ever-changing shades of silver, blue, and gold. The weather shifts in minutes, turning sunlight into storm, storm into mist, mist into dazzling clarity. In the Faroe Islands, nature is never still, it is alive, dynamic, unpredictable, and utterly mesmerizing. As you travel across Vágar, your introduction to the Faroes becomes even more surreal. Just beyond the airport lies Sørvágsvatn, a lake perched high above the ocean, appearing from certain viewpoints to float magically in the sky. It is a natural illusion that defies logic and captures the imagination, a perfect symbol of how the Faroes constantly surprise, constantly challenge what you think you know. Nearby, you hear the roar before you see it, Múlafossur, one of the most iconic waterfalls in the world. Here, water plunges directly from a cliff into the Atlantic Ocean, framed by a tiny village of grass-roofed houses. It is the kind of sight that makes you stop in your tracks, the kind of beauty that feels almost unreal. Standing there, watching the waterfall vanish into the sea, you realize why the Faroes are often described as nature's masterpiece. But beyond the scenery, there is something else, something harder to define but impossible to ignore. It is the feeling of remoteness, of being at the edge of the map. In the Faroes, you are not just visiting a destination, you are stepping into a story, one written by wind and water, by myths and legends, by people who have carved out a life here against all odds. The islands invite you not to simply look, but to listen, to feel, to connect. As night falls, the magic continues. The sky darkens into deep velvet. Stars scatter like diamonds, and sometimes, if you are lucky, the northern lights dance across the horizon in shimmering curtains of green. In that moment, standing on a cliff with the ocean stretching endlessly below, you understand why the Faroes are called the last paradise. They are not about luxury or comfort, they are about awe, humility, and the raw power of nature. The arrival is just the beginning. Ahead lies Tórshavn, the smallest capital in the world, filled with history and charm. Hidden villages like Saksun and Gjógv await, each one a world of its own. Islands like Kirkjubøur and Mykines hold legends and wildlife you won't find anywhere else. Waterfalls, cliffs, and fjords will leave you breathless. And through it all, the Faroese people will show you how to live in harmony with this extraordinary land. This first encounter with the Faroe Islands is not just an introduction, it is an invitation. An invitation to explore, to wonder, to lose yourself in landscapes that feel eternal. An invitation to step away from the noise of the world and find peace in its silence. An invitation to experience the last paradise on earth. What if the smallest capital city in the world could also be one of the most enchanting? In the heart of the North Atlantic, tucked between mountains and sea, lies Tórshavn, the beating heart of the Faroe Islands. With just around 20 residents, it is hardly a bustling metropolis. Yet its spirit, culture, and history make it one of the most remarkable capital cities on earth. From the moment you step into Tórshavn, you feel its uniqueness. There are no towering skyscrapers, no endless highways, no noise of a city that never sleeps. Instead, you find narrow lanes, turf-roofed cottages painted in deep reds and blacks, cozy harbors where fishing boats rest gently on the tide, and a quiet rhythm that makes you forget the rush of the outside world. Tórshavn is not a place of chaos. It is a place of calm, of charm, and of connection. The heart of the capital is Mykines, one of the oldest parliamentary meeting places in the world. Imagine walking along a narrow promontory that stretches into the harbor, lined with centuries-old wooden houses covered with green grass roofs. This was once the center of Viking political life, where leaders gathered to make laws and settle disputes. Today, it still houses government offices, making it a living link between the ancient past and the modern present. As you walk between the red-painted buildings with grass growing overhead, you can almost hear the echoes of Viking chieftains debating under the open sky. Beyond Mykines, Tórshavn opens into a maze of cobblestone streets and hidden corners. The city center feels more like a small village than a capital boutiques selling handmade woolen sweaters, cafes offering Faroese specialties, and locals greeting one another with warmth and familiarity. The people of Tórshavn embody the Faroese spirit, hospitable, resilient, and deeply connected to their land and sea. They know that survival here has always required community, and that sense of unity is still alive in the way they live today. One of the best ways to experience Tórshavn is simply to wander. Let your steps take you past rows of colorful houses, their windows glowing warmly against the often misty sky. Visit the harbor, where fishing remains the lifeblood of the economy, and watch boats unload their daily catch. Pause at a cafe to try raskjøtt, a traditional fermented lamb dish, or enjoy freshly baked bread paired with Faroese salmon. Here, food is not just sustenance, it is culture, tradition, and survival, wrapped in every bite. The city also thrives as a hub of art and culture. Despite its small size, Tórshavn hosts music festivals, art galleries, and cultural events that celebrate both Faroese heritage and international creativity. The Nordic House, a striking modern building surrounded by hills, stands as a symbol of this cultural heartbeat. Inside, concerts, exhibitions, and performances keep the capital alive with energy, proving that remoteness does not limit expression, it inspires it. And then there is the sea. From almost anywhere in Tórshavn, you are reminded of the Atlantic that surrounds these islands. Fishing boats, cargo ships, and ferries connect the capital to the rest of the archipelago. The sea is never far from daily life. It is a constant presence, a provider, and sometimes a threat. For the people of Tórshavn, it is not just a horizon. It is their history, their economy, and their future. But what truly sets Tórshavn apart is its scale. Unlike other capitals, it does not overwhelm you, it welcomes you. There are no distances too far to walk, no neighborhoods closed off from one another. Instead, the entire city feels accessible, intimate, like a community rather than an institution. You don't just visit Tórshavn, you feel like you belong to it, even if only for a short while. As evening falls, the city glows with a quiet magic. Street lamps cast soft light on cobbled paths, windows glow in warm yellow, and the smell of the sea mixes with wood smoke rising from chimneys. Locals gather in cozy pubs to share stories and songs, while visitors are welcomed with the same openness that defines Faroese hospitality. In the stillness of the night, you realize that Tórshavn is more than a capital, it is a soul, the heart of the Faroes beating gently in harmony with the land and sea around it. Standing on the harbor, looking back at the turf-roofed houses of Mykines, you understand why this place leaves such a lasting impression. Tórshavn may be small, but it tells a story as vast as the ocean. It is a story of survival, of tradition, of community, and of balance with nature. It is proof that a capital city does not need size or spectacle to matter, it only needs spirit. And here, on this tiny archipelago at the edge of the world, spirit is everywhere. The journey through the Faroe Islands continues, but Tórshavn is the anchor, the place where history and modern life meet, where visitors first feel the warmth of Faroese culture, and where the heart of this last paradise beats steadily. What if paradise was hidden in a valley, guarded by mountains, and revealed only to those who venture far enough? Deep in the Faroe Islands lies a place that feels untouched by time, a village so remote and mystical that it seems carved out of a dream. This is Saksun, the hidden village of the Faroes. The journey to Saksun is an adventure in itself. The road winds through valleys, past grazing sheep, and alongside streams that tumble down from mist-covered peaks. The air feels sharper here, fresher, as if it carries secrets from the mountains. And then, suddenly, the valley opens up and there it is, Saksun, a cluster of turf-roofed houses scattered across green slopes, framed by cliffs that rise like guardians around it. Below, a tidal lagoon glistens, shifting with the rhythm of the ocean. The view is so surreal that for a moment, you forget this is real. The village is tiny, home to only a handful of people. Yet what it lacks in size, it makes up for in spirit and beauty. Each house blends seamlessly into the landscape, their turf roofs covered in grass that sways with the wind. It's as if nature itself has built this village, weaving human life into the land without disturbing its balance. Walking through Saksun feels less like visiting a place and more like stepping into a living painting. At the heart of the village stands a small white church, its spire pointing skyward as if in prayer. Built in the 19th century, it overlooks the lagoon and the valley beyond, a quiet sentinel that has witnessed generations of life in this isolated corner of the world. Inside, it is simple wooden benches, plain walls, and a sense of peace that wraps around you like a blanket. In a world that often rushes forward, this church is a reminder of simplicity, faith, and endurance. But Saksun is more than its charm, it is also a place of raw, untamed nature. The tidal lagoon below the village shifts constantly, filled by the sea at high tide and transformed into a sandy expanse when the waters retreat. Hiking along its shores, you feel the immense scale of the valley, with cliffs towering above and waterfalls cascading down their sides. The silence here is powerful, broken only by the cry of seabirds and the distant roar of the ocean. It is a silence that makes you feel both small and deeply connected to the earth. Legends whisper through this valley. Locals speak of storms that once shaped the lagoon, of tales carried through generations about the resilience required to survive here. For centuries, life in Saksun was harsh, isolated from the rest of the islands, dependent on fishing, farming, and the mercy of nature. Today, with modern roads, it is easier to reach, yet it still carries that aura of remoteness, as if the outside world has never fully entered. Visitors often find themselves lingering, unable to leave. They walk slowly, sit by the church, watch the play of light on the lagoon, and feel time stretch in ways it rarely does elsewhere. In Saksun, the pace of life slows, not by choice, but by design. The land dictates the rhythm, the tides set the schedule, and the mountains stand eternal, reminding you that human presence here is only temporary. Photographers and filmmakers are drawn to Saksun for obvious reasons. The light here is magical. Mist rolls over the cliffs, sunlight pierces through clouds in sudden bursts, and reflections shimmer on the lagoon. Every angle feels cinematic, every frame worthy of capturing. Yet no camera can fully contain the atmosphere, the quiet awe, the weight of history, the harmony between human and nature. That can only be felt by being here, breathing this air, standing in this silence. As the day fades, Saksun becomes even more ethereal. The lagoon glows in twilight, the church casts a shadow across the valley, and the houses seem to disappear into the earth itself. In the soft evening light, it feels like you are looking at a place untouched by centuries, a place where time itself has chosen to pause. Saksun is not just a village. It is a reminder of what it means to live with nature rather than against it, to embrace isolation as beauty rather than burden, to find paradise not in grand monuments but in simplicity. It is a place that humbles you, that makes you see the world differently, that leaves an imprint on your soul long after you've left its valley. In the Faroe Islands, there are many places of wonder, but Saksun holds a special kind of magic, the magic of being hidden, preserved, eternal. It is not just the hidden village of the Faroes. It is the hidden heart of paradise itself. What if paradise could be found at the end of a gorge, where the sea carves its way into the heart of a village? On the northeast tip of Eysturoy Island lies one of the most enchanting places in the Faroes, a place where nature and human life meet in perfect harmony. This is Gjógv, a village of breathtaking beauty, defined by its natural harbor and the raw wilderness that surrounds it. The name Gjógv itself means gorge in Faroese, and from the moment you arrive, you understand why. The village is built around a deep, narrow ravine that slices into the coastline, creating a natural harbor unlike any other in the islands. For centuries, this gorge was the lifeline of the community, a place where fishermen launched their boats into the unpredictable Atlantic. Today, it stands as both a symbol of survival and a natural wonder, drawing travelers from across the world to witness its beauty. Walking through Gjógv feels like stepping into a storybook. Colorful cottages dot the hillsides, their turf roofs blending into the green slopes. Sheep graze lazily on the steep pastures, and streams tumble down the mountains into the gorge below. Everything here feels pure, untouched, as if the modern world has yet to intrude. The village is small, just a handful of families live here, but its charm is immense. It is a place where silence reigns, broken only by the rush of water and the cries of seabirds circling above. The gorge itself is nothing short of spectacular. Standing on its edge, you watch the Atlantic swell and surge through the narrow opening, waves crashing against the dark volcanic rock. The water glistens like liquid glass, reflecting the ever-changing Faroese sky, sometimes gray and brooding, sometimes golden with sunlight, sometimes painted in shades of blue so deep they feel endless. The gorge is alive, always in motion, a reminder of the power of nature and the fragility of human existence beside it. Yet Gjógv is not only about survival, it is also about beauty. Hiking trails lead from the village up into the mountains, offering views that are simply unforgettable. From the heights, you see the village nestled like a jewel against the sea, the gorge cutting through the land like a scar, and the surrounding cliffs rising dramatically against the horizon. On a clear day, you can see across to Kalsoy Island, its jagged peaks rising like the spines of a dragon from the ocean. It is the kind of landscape that leaves you speechless, a place where words feel too small for the grandeur before your eyes. Life in Gjógv has always been shaped by its remoteness. In the past, winters were long and harsh, isolating the community from the rest of the Faroes. Fishing was dangerous, farming was hard, and survival demanded resilience. Today, while roads and tourism have made it easier to reach, Gjógv still feels like a world apart. Visitors often remark that coming here is like stepping back in time, into a way of life that moves at nature's pace rather than humanity's rush. The village also carries with it a sense of tradition and pride. Local families maintain their turf-roofed houses, care for their sheep, and keep alive the rhythms of Faroese rural life. Hospitality here is warm, genuine, and rooted in centuries of knowing that every visitor, every traveler, every helping hand matters. In a place where isolation once meant survival, community remains the strongest bond of all. As evening falls, Gjógv takes on an even more magical quality. The setting sun paints the mountains in shades of pink and gold, while the gorge reflects the colors of the sky. Smoke curls gently from chimneys, lights glow warmly in the cottages, and the sound of waves fills the valley like a lullaby. Standing on the cliffs, watching the Atlantic merge with the night, you feel the immense beauty of this place settle deep into your soul. What makes Gjógv unforgettable is not just its scenery, it is the way it embodies the spirit of the Faroes. Resilient, remote, breathtaking, and humble. It is a village that has survived against the odds, that has thrived in harmony with the land, and that continues to welcome those who make the journey to its hidden gorge. When you leave Gjógv, you carry with you more than photographs. You carry the memory of a village cradled by cliffs, of a gorge carved by the sea, of a people who live in rhythm with nature. You carry the feeling that in this remote corner of the world, paradise has been preserved not in grand monuments or luxuries, but in simplicity, beauty, and the unshakable bond between humanity and the land it calls home. Gjógv is not just a village. It is a dream carved into the cliffs of the Faroes, a natural harbor of survival, of beauty, of wonder, and it is a reminder that sometimes the greatest treasures are found in the most unexpected places, at the very edge of the sea. What if you could walk on an island that feels like a living legend, where steep cliffs guard ancient stories, and at the very edge of the world, a solitary lighthouse stands against the Atlantic winds? Welcome to Kalsoy, one of the most dramatic and mysterious islands in the Faroes. Known as the Flute for its long, narrow shape dotted with tunnels, Kalsoy is a place where myth and reality blend seamlessly, where every step feels like part of a grand adventure. The journey begins with a ferry ride across the waters from Klaksvík, the second largest town in the Faroes. As the boat approaches Kalsoy, you see towering cliffs rise straight out of the ocean, wrapped in mist, as if the island itself is trying to hide from the outside world. The sense of mystery grows stronger with each passing moment. Kalsoy is not just a destination, it's a revelation. The island is famous for its 11 tunnels, some single lane, dark, and carved directly into the rock. Driving through them feels like entering another dimension, as if each tunnel transports you deeper into Kalsoy's secrets. Emerging on the other side, you are met with sweeping valleys, villages of turf-roofed houses, and cliffs that plunge dramatically into the sea. It's a landscape that keeps surprising you, shifting from serene to overwhelming in the blink of an eye. Kalsoy is perhaps best known for one of the Faroes' most iconic sites, the Kallur Lighthouse. Perched on the northern tip of the island, this white beacon has become a symbol of the Faroes themselves. The hike to the lighthouse is an unforgettable experience, a winding path along grassy ridges with sheer drops on either side. It is not for the faint of heart, but every step rewards you with views that are almost beyond imagination. The mountains of Kunoy and Viðoy rise across the water, jagged like the teeth of a dragon. The cliffs fall away beneath your feet, revealing the endless expanse of the North Atlantic. And then, at the edge of it all, the lighthouse stands small, humble, and eternal. Standing here feels like standing at the edge of the earth. The wind roars, seabirds wheel overhead, and the ocean stretches endlessly in every direction. It is a moment that humbles you, that makes you realize how vast and untamed this world still is. And yet, despite the raw power of nature, The lighthouse endures, guiding ships through the storms, a symbol of resilience in the face of the wild. But Kalsoy is not only about landscapes, it is also a land of legends. The most famous is the tale of the seal woman, or Kopakonen. The story tells of a seal that shed its skin to become a woman, captured by a fisherman and forced to live as his wife. Though she bore him children, her heart longed for the sea. One day, she found her hidden seal skin and returned to the ocean, leaving her family behind. Heartbroken, yet bound by her nature, she swam away, never to return. A statue of Kopakonen now stands in the village of Mikladalur, gazing eternally at the sea, embodying both the sorrow and the strength of this haunting tale. The legend is more than just a story. It reflects the relationship between the Faroese people and the ocean. The sea gives life, but it also takes it away. It is a source of beauty and danger, of sustenance and sorrow. Standing before the statue, with waves crashing against the cliffs, you feel the weight of generations who lived with this truth, who built their lives on the edge of survival. Every village on Kalsoy carries this sense of resilience. Small communities cling to the land, their colorful houses contrasting with the dark cliffs. Sheep roam freely, waterfalls tumble down the mountains, and life here feels untouched by time. There is a rawness to Kalsoy that sets it apart, a sense that the land itself demands respect. Even Hollywood has been drawn to its drama. Kalsoy's cliffs and lighthouse gained worldwide attention when they were featured in the James Bond film No Time to Die. But beyond the fame, the island remains what it has always been, a place of raw beauty, mystery, and spirit. As the day fades and the mist rolls back in from the sea, Kalsoy feels even more otherworldly. The cliffs disappear into the fog, the villages glow softly with lights, and the waves continue their eternal rhythm against the shore. It is a place that lingers in your memory, not just as a sight, but as a feeling, a mixture of awe, reverence, and wonder. Kalsoy is not just another island in the Faroes. It is a story written in stone and sea, a land where myths breathe, where nature shows its most dramatic face, and where solitude becomes beauty. To walk here, to stand by the lighthouse, to hear the wind howl through the cliffs, it is to know what it means to be alive at the edge of the world. This is Kalsoy, the island of legends, the island of lighthouses, the island where paradise whispers in the wind. What if I told you that one of the world's smallest capitals holds one of the richest souls? A city where turf-roofed houses stand proudly beside modern cafes, where ancient history whispers through narrow alleys, and where the heartbeat of a nation pulses with warmth and creativity? This is Tórshavn, the capital of the Faroe Islands, a place where old and new meet in perfect harmony. From the moment you arrive, Tórshavn feels different from any other capital you've known. Forget skyscrapers, traffic jams, and crowded streets. Here, the city moves at a slower pace, guided not by rush hours, but by the rhythm of the sea and the changing skies. With a population of just over 20, it feels more like a village than a metropolis. Yet it carries the weight of being the cultural, political, and economic heart of the Faroes. The history of Tórshavn stretches back over 1,000 years. It is one of the oldest parliamentary meeting places in the world. On the Mykines Peninsula, you'll find red wooden buildings with turf roofs that still serve as government offices. Walking among them feels like stepping back in time. Imagine Viking chieftains gathering here centuries ago, discussing laws and resolving disputes. The air seems heavy with the echoes of history, yet the scene is alive and present, proof that tradition here is not forgotten but woven into everyday life. Beyond its history, Tórshavn is alive with creativity. The city is filled with cozy cafes, boutique shops, and art galleries that showcase the spirit of the Faroese people. Music plays a huge role here. Folk songs blend with modern beats, and festivals celebrate both tradition and innovation. Literature, too, thrives in this small capital, with poets and writers capturing the essence of life in the Faroes. It's remarkable how a place so small can produce so much artistic energy, but perhaps it is the isolation, the wild beauty, and the close-knit community that inspire such creativity. Food is another window into Tórshavn's soul. The capital is home to some of the most unique restaurants in the world. Here, tradition meets innovation on the plate. Dishes made from local lamb, fresh fish, and foraged herbs tell the story of survival and sustainability. At places like Cox, the Michelin-starred restaurant hidden in a remote valley outside the city, dining becomes an adventure, a journey through flavors shaped by land and sea. It is a cuisine that respects the past, while daring to explore the future. Much like the Faroese spirit itself, the harbor is the city's lifeline. Fishing boats dock with the day's catch, ferries connect the islands, and yachts arrive from distant shores. Standing here, you see the blend of tradition and modernity at work. Old warehouses have been transformed into restaurants and shops, while fishermen still mend their nets by hand. The sea is ever present, not just as a view, but as a force that defines life here. Tórshavn may be small, but its streets are alive with warmth. People greet each other by name, neighbors stop to talk in the square, and visitors are welcomed with genuine hospitality. It's a place where community is everything, where trust still shapes daily life. Even as the city grows and modernizes, it holds tightly to this sense of closeness, a reminder of what makes it truly special. Nature is never far from Tórshavn. A short walk takes you to windswept hills, quiet beaches, or trails leading into the mountains. The city seems to merge seamlessly with its surroundings, never trying to overpower the land, but instead existing in harmony with it. On some days, mist rolls through the streets, softening everything into a dreamlike haze. On others, sunlight illuminates the turf roofs, making them glow like emeralds against the dark volcanic rock. No 2 days are ever the same, because in the Faroes, nature writes the story. As night falls, Tórshavn takes on a magical charm. Lights twinkle in the windows, laughter drifts from restaurants, and the sound of music spills into the streets. There's a coziness here, a sense of belonging that wraps around you like a warm blanket. And as you look out across the harbor, with the dark ocean stretching beyond, you realize that even in this tiny capital at the edge of the world, the human spirit shines as brightly as anywhere else. Tórshavn is not about size or grandeur. It is about character. It is about history, culture, resilience, and creativity. It is proof that greatness is not measured by how big a city is, but by how deeply it touches those who walk its streets. This is Tórshavn, the smallest capital with the biggest soul. A city that embraces its past, celebrates its present, and looks toward its future with quiet strength and endless heart. What if you could walk in a village where the Middle Ages never truly ended? A place where wooden houses have stood for centuries, where ruined cathedrals whisper of forgotten grandeur, and where every stone seems to tell the story of survival, faith, and heritage? Welcome to Kirkjubøur, the medieval heart of the Faroe Islands, and one of the most historically important sites in the North Atlantic. Just a short drive from Tórshavn, Kirkjubøur feels like stepping back hundreds of years. This small village, perched on the western coast of Streymoy Island, was once the spiritual and cultural center of the Faroes. It was here that bishops ruled, where laws were written, and where faith shaped the lives of generations. Today, with only a handful of houses, it may seem quiet, almost forgotten, but within its boundaries lies a history that shaped the identity of the Faroese people. The most striking landmark here is the magnificent ruin of St. Magnus Cathedral. Built in the 13th century, it was meant to be the largest medieval building in the Faroe Islands, a symbol of faith and power. Yet, mysteriously, it was never completed. The stone walls still stand tall, roofless and weathered by centuries of wind and rain. Walking among its ruins, you can feel the weight of history pressing in on you. The unfinished arches, the towering walls open to the sky, the sense of grandeur halted midway. It all creates an atmosphere that is both haunting and awe-inspiring. Some say the cathedral was abandoned due to shifting political power, others to lack of resources. But whatever the reason, It has remained here for nearly 800 years, a silent monument to human ambition and the passing of time. Beside the ruins stands the tiny but active St. Olav's Church, dating back to the 12th century. Simple, whitewashed, and still in use, it contrasts sharply with the ruined cathedral beside it. Inside, wooden pews and humble decorations speak of faith lived quietly, faithfully, across centuries. Imagine generations of Faroese families, baptized, married, and buried here, while storms raged outside and history shifted all around. The church is not just a building, it is a living thread that connects the Faroese people to their ancestors. But Kirkjubøur's history doesn't stop with its churches. The village is also home to the famous Roykstoven, believed to be the oldest continually inhabited wooden house in Europe. Built around the 11th century, this farmhouse has been the seat of the same family for 17 generations. Stepping inside, you feel transported to another age. Dark wooden walls, turf roof, and the smell of wood smoke lingering in the air. Life here was hard, but the house has endured, just like the people of the Faroes. To this day, it is still a family home, carrying forward nearly a millennium of tradition. Kirkjubøur was once the center of learning and culture in the Faroes. For centuries, it was the site of the bishop's residence, and the Faroese law books, the oldest known documents from the islands, were written here. In this small village on the edge of the Atlantic, history was made that shaped the entire nation. It is humbling to realize that what seems today like a quiet, remote place was once the beating heart of Faroese life. The landscape around Kirkjubøur is just as evocative as its history. From the village, you can gaze across the sea toward the islands of Sandoy and Hester. Waves crash against the black volcanic rocks, seabirds wheel overhead, and the grass sways in the wind. It is a view that has remained unchanged for centuries, a constant backdrop to the rise and fall of human life here. Visitors who come to Kirkjubøur often remark on its atmosphere. There is a stillness here, a sense that time flows differently. The ruins of St. Magnus Cathedral open to the sky, the timeless church still standing, the farmhouse that has sheltered generations, it all creates an impression of continuity, of history that is not dead, but alive, woven into the present. And yet, despite its age and significance, Kirkjubøur is not a museum. It is a living village. Children play in the fields, sheep graze nearby, and life carries on as it always has. That is the magic of this place. It is both a monument to the past and a home for the present. As the sun begins to set, the cathedral ruins glow in golden light. The sea reflects shades of silver and blue, and the old wooden house seems to whisper stories carried on the wind. Standing there, you understand why Kirkjubøur is called the heart of Faroese history. It is not just about what was built or what was lost. It is about endurance, about survival, about the deep roots that connect the Faroese people to their land and their past. Kirkjubøur is more than a village. It is a reminder of where the Faroese came from, of the strength that carried them through centuries of storms, and of the spirit that still defines them today. To walk here is to walk through history itself, a journey into the medieval soul of the Faroe Islands. What if there was a place where lakes float above the sea, where waterfalls plunge straight into the Atlantic, and where every step feels like walking through a fantasy world? This is Vágar, the island of wonders, where some of the Faroes' most iconic and otherworldly landscapes await. The story of Vágar begins with its most famous treasure, Lake Sørvágsvatn. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary lake, but appearances here are deceiving. From the right viewpoint, it creates one of the most mind-bending illusions in the world. Known as the lake above the ocean, Sørvágsvatn sits on a cliff high above the sea, and from certain angles, it seems to hover impossibly over the Atlantic. The illusion is breathtaking, a trick of perspective where land, water, and sky combine into something surreal. Hiking along its shores, you realize the scale of this natural wonder. Waves crash far below, seabirds ride the wind, and the vast lake seems to defy the laws of nature. Follow the trail along the cliffs, and you arrive at Trallanipa, the Slave Cliff. Steep, sheer, and towering above the sea, this cliff once held a darker purpose. According to legend, it was here that disobedient thralls, or slaves, were pushed into the ocean below. Today, the view is less about tragedy and more about awe. Standing at the edge, with the lake stretching behind you and the endless Atlantic before you, you feel the immense power of the land. The wind whips through your hair, waves crash violently against the rock, and the horizon stretches endlessly, reminding you that here, nature reigns supreme. But the wonders of Vágar don't end there. Just a short journey away lies one of the most dramatic waterfalls in the world, Múlafossur. Cascading straight from the cliffs into the ocean, this waterfall looks like it belongs in a dream. The tiny village of Gazadalur overlooks it, surrounded by towering peaks and accessible until recently only by footpath. Imagine the lives of villagers here, carrying goods up steep mountain trails, isolated from the rest of the Faroes. Today, a tunnel connects Gazadalur to the outside world, but the sense of remoteness still lingers. Standing before Múlafossur, watching the water plunge into the sea below, you feel as though you've stumbled into a secret corner of the earth. Vágar is also home to Vágar Airport, the gateway for most travelers arriving in the Faroes. But few realize that beyond the runways lies a land of mystery and adventure. Drive just a little beyond the airport, and you find yourself among jagged peaks, hidden lakes, and valleys carved by glaciers. Hiking here feels like entering another realm, where each path reveals a new wonder. The island's small villages add to its charm. Vágar, with its colorful houses clustered along the shore, greets visitors with warmth and simplicity. Bur, another gem, offers one of the most stunning views in the Faroes, the tiny islet of Tindhólmur, rising from the sea like a dragon's back. From the village, with its old turf-roofed houses and winding lanes, the scene looks like a painting, unreal in its perfection. Vágar's landscapes are not only about beauty, but also about resilience. For centuries, its people lived in isolation, farming the land, fishing the seas, and surviving in harmony with the wild. Even today, life here is shaped by the weather, the tides, and the cliffs. It is a place that humbles you. It teaches you respect for nature's power and generosity. Photographers, hikers, and dreamers are all drawn to Vágar. Its illusions, its cliffs, its waterfalls, it is a paradise for the imagination. No wonder it has become one of the most photographed and celebrated parts of the Faroe Islands. Yet, despite its fame, it never loses its mystery. Every visit feels different, shaped by shifting light, rolling mists, and the moods of the Atlantic. As the day fades and the sun sinks low over the horizon, Vágar transforms once more. The cliffs glow golden. The lake above the ocean becomes a mirror for the sky, and Múlafossur falls in a silver stream into the darkening sea. Silence settles over the villages, broken only by the distant cries of seabirds. It is a moment that feels eternal, as though you are standing at the edge of both the earth and time itself. Vágar is not just an island. It is a dream made real, a place where illusions become landscapes, where waterfalls defy gravity, and where the earth reveals its most enchanting secrets. It is the Faroes at their most magical, their most unforgettable, their most alive. This is Vágar, the island of lakes, waterfalls, and wonders. A place where paradise does not just exist, it takes your breath away. What if paradise had wings? What if an island existed where puffins soar overhead, cliffs rise like cathedrals from the sea, and every step you take leads you closer to the edge of the sky? This place is real. It is called Mykines, the westernmost island of the Faroes, and a sanctuary for birds, beauty, and the soul. Getting to Mykines is itself an adventure. The journey begins with a ferry from Vágar, crossing restless waters where the Atlantic seems to test your determination. On stormy days, the trip is impossible, leaving the island isolated, just as it has been for centuries. But when you finally arrive, Stepping off the boat onto the small harbor surrounded by towering cliffs, it feels like entering another world, a world ruled not by people, but by nature. Mykines is known as the Island of Birds, and from the moment you arrive, you understand why. Puffins, with their colorful beaks and comical charm, nest here in their thousands. They dart through the skies, dive into the sea, and return to the grassy slopes where they dig burrows to raise their young. Standing among them, you are surrounded by life and motion, an entire world in flight. For many visitors, this is the highlight of their Faroese journey, the moment when they truly feel the wild magic of the islands. But puffins are not the only rulers of Mykines. Gannets, fulmars, and other seabirds soar above the cliffs, their cries echoing across the valleys. The air feels alive with wings, a reminder that this island is not just a home for people, but a sanctuary for countless species that have made it their refuge. Watching them glide effortlessly on the wind, you feel a sense of freedom, of connection to something greater than yourself. The island itself is just as extraordinary as its bird life. Mykines is small, with one village of the same name. A cluster of turf-roofed houses, whitewashed walls, and narrow paths makes up the entire settlement. In summer, the village feels alive with visitors, hikers, and locals tending to their land. In winter, however, it falls almost silent, cut off by storms and darkness, a reminder of the resilience required to live here. The true jewel of Mykines lies at its western tip, the Mykines Islet, reached by a narrow footbridge suspended above the roaring Atlantic. Crossing it is unforgettable. Beneath you, waves crash violently against the rocks, sending sprays of seawater high into the air. Above you, seabirds wheel and dive, their cries mixing with the thunder of the ocean. The crossing feels like a passage into another world, a world beyond time. On the far side of the bridge stands the Mykines Lighthouse. Built in 1909, it perches on a grassy ridge, overlooking the endless horizon. Few lighthouses on Earth can rival its beauty. Surrounded by cliffs, seabirds, and the vast Atlantic, it feels like the edge of the world. To stand there is to feel utterly small, utterly humbled, and yet profoundly alive. The wind whips around you, the ocean stretches beyond sight, and you realize that this is not just a view, it is an experience that stays with you forever. Mykines is also rich with legend. Stories are told of giants and spirits, of ancient beliefs that shaped the islanders' lives. The Faroese have always woven myth into their landscape, and here, on this isolated outpost, the stories feel especially vivid. Perhaps it is the mist that shrouds the cliffs, or the cries of the seabirds that sound like voices from another world. Whatever the reason, Mykines feels enchanted, both real and otherworldly at once. Life on Mykines has never been easy. For centuries, the villagers survived through fishing, sheep farming, and gathering seabirds' eggs from the cliffs, a dangerous task that often costs lives. Today, the island is more connected, with ferries and helicopters linking it to the rest of the Faroes. Yet, it remains remote, fragile, and dependent on nature's mercy. It is this very remoteness that makes it so special, so untouched, so pure. As evening falls, the island glows with golden light. The puffins return to their burrows, the lighthouse beam cuts through the mist, and the village settles into silence. Standing on the cliffs, with the ocean stretching endlessly into the west, you feel as if you are standing at the very edge of the world. Mykines is not just a place to see, it is a place to feel, to breathe, to remember. This is Mykines, the island of birds, the island of horizons, the island where paradise takes flight. What if the end of the journey felt more like a beginning? What if, after exploring mountains that rise like ancient giants, villages that whisper with history, and oceans that thunder with untamed power, you realize the Faroe Islands were not simply a destination, but an awakening? This is the final chapter of our voyage, a farewell to the last paradise on Earth. As you look back on the Faroes, The first thing you remember is the feeling of isolation. A chain of 18 islands scattered in the North Atlantic, halfway between Norway and Iceland, yet somehow belonging to neither. Remote, rugged, and ruled by nature, they stand apart from the world, as though carved from another realm. From the moment you arrive, it is not just the landscapes that take hold of you, but the silence, the vast, powerful silence of a place that refuses to be tamed. Throughout this journey, we have walked among villages where turf-roofed houses blend seamlessly with the land, as if humans never sought to conquer nature, but to live humbly within it. We have stood on cliffs where seabirds outnumber people 1,000 to 1, their wings stitching the skies into living patterns. We have listened to waterfalls thunder into the ocean, to the wind whistle through valleys, to the ancient songs carried in the mist. Each chapter of this land has been a reminder that paradise is not measured in comfort or luxury. It is found in rawness, in purity, in truth. The Faroe Islands are not perfect. They are wild, unpredictable, and demanding. The weather changes in an instant, shifting from calm to storm without warning. Ferries may be canceled, roads may be closed, trails may disappear into fog. To journey here is to surrender control, to allow nature to dictate your path. And yet, in this surrender, there is freedom. The Faroes strip away the noise of modern life and return you to something essential, something that has always lived within us but is so easily forgotten. Culture here is not separate from the land, but born from it. The Faroese people have survived for centuries on fishing, sheep farming, and the generosity of the sea. Their songs, their traditions, their very language are tied to the rhythms of the wind and the waves. In the food they share, in the festivals they celebrate, in the stories they pass down, you feel the heartbeat of a people who have endured isolation, storms, and hardship with grace and resilience. And so, as we leave these islands, it is not the images of cliffs or waterfalls that linger most deeply, but the feeling of connection to land, to history, to nature, to something larger than ourselves. The Faroes remind us of a truth we too often ignore, that we are not above nature, but within it, part of it, bound to it. Standing on the deck of the ferry as it carries you away, the islands fade into the mist. The cliffs that once loomed so high soften into shadows. The turf-roofed houses become specks of green against green. The lighthouse beams one last farewell. And yet, even as the Faroes disappear from sight, they remain imprinted within you, a vision that time cannot erase. Perhaps that is the true wonder of the Faroe Islands. They are not just a place to visit, but a place that changes you. They whisper of simplicity in a world of noise. They reveal the strength of nature in a world that seeks control. They remind you that paradise is not always sunny beaches and golden sands. Sometimes it is cliffs wrapped in fog, winds that shake the earth, and skies filled with the cries of seabirds. The Faroes are eternal. Their beauty is not fleeting, but enduring. Long after you leave, you will close your eyes and hear the Atlantic crashing against the rocks, see puffins darting across the cliffs, feel the salt wind against your face. You will remember the silence, the kind of silence that makes you listen not just to the world around you, but to yourself. This is not just the end of a journey. It is the beginning of a new way of seeing the world. Because once you have stood at the edge of the Faroe Islands, once you have walked through their valleys and sailed their waters, you can never look at life in the same way again. You carry a piece of this last paradise with you, forever. And so, we say goodbye not with sadness, but with gratitude. Gratitude for the cliffs that stood like guardians, for the villages that welcomed us, for the people who shared their stories, for the seabirds that danced above us, and for the sea that roared around us. Gratitude for a place that feels less like Earth and more like a dream. The Faroe Islands. The last paradise on Earth. A paradise not lost, but found. A paradise that waits for those brave enough to journey to its shores, and open enough to let it transform them. Thanks for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed exploring Prague as much as I enjoyed guiding you through it. If you found this travel guide helpful, Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more beautiful destinations from around the world. Got a favorite spot in Prague? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, safe travels and see you in the next video.